That's a cold start. The music's great. I guess I got to fade that out a little bit, but I love it.
Yeah, get a fade in that music.
The one thing we talked about is that I get to choose the music. David chooses the music in everything we do. Mitch does everything else, but David gets to choose the music because I cannot tell
everything else. DJ Hulk, man. DJ Hulk.
Yeah, I cannot tell you how many people are like, that's a fresh intro you got there. That's a great song. Well, good morning. Good morning. It's good to be back. 2 weeks in a row, we're here. We're ready to go. Mitch, how you doing, buddy?
I'm ready to rock and roll, baby. Today's topics, top 5 league winning picks. Can't be a better one. David and I love this. We spent a lot of time this week talking about what type of show should we be doing. This one was the first one on our list. We both were excited about it. Should shine brightly today when we're going over our list, our favorite picks. We're going to be using the website, checkdownchamps.com, totally free, 1,000% free. There's going to be fancy, actually, they're already on there, fantasy football rankings and player-by-player projections that you can use for your fantasy leagues, that you can use for Underdog Fantasy, and it's 100% free using Hulk and my model. Free. You don't get stuff like this out there for free. There's rankings everywhere for free, but the projections and the articles and the insight we're going to provide there 100% free. 365 days per year. It's our way to give back to you for supporting us, so thank you. If you are new to watching our stream on Twitter or my YouTube or Hulk's YouTube, make sure you give us a follow, hit the like button, and we're here every Saturday, 9 a.m., 52 weeks a year is the goal. We're going to be here for NFL preseason, NFL regular season, the playoffs. Then we're going to be talking about the draft next year, and then off-season. The goal is just be, hey, every Saturday, 9 a.m., if you love football, be here, and we will be too.
Yes, sir. Listen, these projections here are, as Mitch said, are there for you guys to use. If you like what we've got, go ahead and follow through with them, use them in your draft and everything. If you disagree or whatever, these are a great starting point. We went through after our show last week, and we did some tweaks on them, some areas that we thought that we wanted to adjust. And listen, we've got camp news now. We've got a preseason game, for God's sakes, that was rained out in the third quarter, but it was good just to have football back. I'm going to run through a couple of quick notes from training camp, beat writer stuff that I think is relevant. Just a couple of things. It'll be no more than a minute or two, and then we will get down to our top 5 league winning picks. We're going to go back and forth here, and we're going to riff. We're going to talk about them. I don't think we'll disagree on too many of them but maybe as we get to the later round ones, we will. I'm very curious to see what Mitch's list is. I don't know what it is. I tried to hack into his computer the other night to get that list, and I was unable to obtain it. But, stay tuned. I'm still trying. All right. So a couple of news and notes things from the week. I would say probably the biggest news is DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins injured 4 to 6 weeks. He's out. I would say that they probably don't rush him back. So if it's on the side of the 6 weeks for a 32-year-old receiver, he probably misses a game or two potentially. If he suits up week 1, he's probably not 100%. So keep that in mind. That one hurt. I'm pretty bummed. I think I have like 15 to 20% DeAndre Hopkins. I loved him in my Will Levis stacks. I actually liked him more than Ridley this year, which I know is a hot take. But anyways, the weeks that DeAndre Hopkins is out, Ridley will obviously shine and get a ton of targets. So keep that in mind. Bucks rookie Jalen McMillan, who's a guy that's been popping up in ADP lately. He is competing for that wide receiver 3 spot behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Looks good in practice, looking good. Deontay Foreman had a scary neck injury the other day, had to get airlifted out of practice. He is back with the team. He seems to be okay. That's good news there. Jerry Jeudy, knee injury, should be fine. Looks like it's day to day. And the other big one, well, 2 other big ones, quarterback position. Geno Smith had a little scare, was having hip and knee pain. I was nervous because I have a ton of exposure to guys like DK, Jackson Smith, and Najigba, and this offense in general I'm really high on. I was holding my breath. Turns out, shouldn't miss any time. Nothing major was found in the MRI, so that's good news there. And the other big quarterback news is Chargers. Justin Herbert injured his right foot, has some plantar fasciitis or whatever. He is he is in a walking boot right now. Looks like it's going to be about 2 weeks in the boot. Then he comes back, eases into practice. I don't have a ton of concern about him missing week 1, but it's something to watch because Justin Herbert is a sneaky athletic guy. And if he is hindered in any way week 1 or week 2, I think it will be interesting to monitor. And maybe those running backs get a little bit of a boost more than they already were going to get with Harbaugh in the offense. But that's really the biggest news and notes. There's obviously, news every single day from every single camp, but that's the big stuff. We're already starting to see injuries. And let's hope that we can get through the rest of training camp and preseason relatively unscathed.
Thank you for running those down. Honestly, been so busy with the launch of that optimizer that I missed out on a lot of that. We got to do that every Saturday to start our show. That is so helpful. And I can't imagine, listen, I bet you 95% of the people out there tuning in this morning probably also sat there like, oh my gosh, I didn't know about all this, because we're all busy. We're busy with life. David over here tracking this for us. Really appreciate that. I like it a lot. We got to keep that up. Let's go, man. Let's dive in. Top 5 league winning picks. These are our picks where we are planting our flag. Listen, there ain't nothing wrong until it's wrong when it comes to best ball and it comes to rankings. Truly, every single year, there's guys who are pushed by every single, Twitter personality and fantasy football analyst out there, and they're all saying the same thing: draft this guy, go here, go there, and then it always blows up in everyone's faces, and these unheralded players come out of nowhere and they win you leagues. Right now, our goal is to cover from beginning to end at different draft spots throughout the entirety of the ADP and finding you those guys that we believe can win you your league. These are not always going to be plays that like everyone is on. They're super popular. No. These are our plays. And some of them might be, but these are our plays where like, hey, we just think the sky is the limit for these players based on their ADP, relative to their ADP. And they're in a situation or a scenario. And if certain things come to fruition, they can win you your league because of the value they're going to provide at their current draft position. So without further ado, David, my man, I look to you as the better of the two of us when it comes to best ball. And that was proven over the last 2 years where you made more money than I did, essentially doing the same exact contest. So I'm going to let you take the lead here. Who is your number one? I shouldn't say number one, but who is your first? Because these are going to be for the early rounds. League winning pick.
Well, let me just say that was kind of you to say. What I will say is my first player is Jamar Chase. And listen, that is the guy I have been snagging consistently in the first round. Any chance I get, I'll even skip over a guy potentially like Tyreek Hill to grab him sometimes. Jamar Chase is my guy. I love CeeDee Lamb, but Jamar Chase is going to be the guy I am trying to go out of my way to draft in the first round. And that is because he's got a healthy Joe Burrow this season. He's trying to get that contract secure. T. Higgins, we know, is eventually, I think you just get the feeling that T. Higgins isn't going to be there forever. Jamar Chase is the wide receiver of the future for this team. They're going to feed him this year. Joe Burrow loves him. They obviously have that chemistry already built up. He's had 1,000 yards in each of his first 3 seasons. He's entering year 3, which is huge. I'm sorry, year 4, but it's a huge time. This is when receivers peak in their development. I think that he's been stifled the last couple of years with Joe Burrow being on and off the field. Jamar Chase is a guy I could easily see putting up 1,500 yards, scoring 12 to 13 touchdowns, and he hasn't been as high of a target guy as I'd like to see, usually settling in around like the 130 range, whereas his peers, the guys that are around him putting up similar numbers, are getting like 160 plus for targets. If he can jump up into that tier and get the targets that I think a guy like Jamar Chase deserves, I think the sky is the limit. I easily think he can overcome CeeDee Lamb this year and be wide receiver 1. He showed that he could score touchdowns. And Tyler Boyd, throw that in the fact that Tyler Boyd's gone. They have a Jermaine Burton, who's a rookie, who's going to be probably getting that wide receiver 3 spot there. I love this. Mixon's gone. It just, everything screams to me that they're going to have to lean on Chase. So as long as Joe Burrow stays healthy, that is my guy. I think that could break the league this year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, listen, the sky's the limit for a young alpha like Jamar Chase, and he's got his man back. He's got Joe Burrow back. Cincinnati's got something to prove. I think they're a dark horse to win the entire AFC this year. I truly do. And I know, everyone's always going to keep betting on the Bills. They're going to bet on the Chiefs. I think there's going to be a team here in the AFC that surprises. It's a loaded conference this year. I mean, heck, even like the Jets. Speaking of the Jets, let's talk about Garrett Wilson, my number one pick. And before we dive into it, yes, sir. Before we dive into this, David, I was thinking about this morning, man. You and I are very similar. NFL is literally just kind of always in the back of our mind, whether we're betting on MLB, whether we're talking about optimizers or your new sports betting AI tool you're launching shortly. We are always still thinking NFL. And I was sitting there, I'm drinking my coffee, and I'm like, man, I wonder if Aaron Rodgers would have retired if last season he realized, like, man, the Jets just don't have it. They don't have a future. They don't have the talent. They're not going to be able to compete. Or if he was like, man, this was my shot. This is the team. They are so freaking good. Everyone around me is good. They got young players in the right spots. Heck, I mean, they literally have one of the best running backs in the NFL already, entering his third season, a couple injury seasons, Breece Hall, and then a dude in Garrett Wilson who had 147, 168 targets his first 2 years from horrendous quarterback play, and he still produced. How's he going to do with me under center? And Aaron Rodgers is sitting there feeling good, great defense, one of the best, probably top 5 O-line in the league. Did he sit there, do you think, last year and was only coming back because they're so good, or do you think he just, he's one of those guys like, I just can't get off the horse here?
I think it's a little bit of both, but I think you're right with this pick. Like, I love Garrett Wilson. I think he's going right around the turn right now at like anywhere between the 10th and like the 13th overall spot. And I think he's a great pick. I love that you chose him. I think you're right. Like, yeah, if Rodgers doesn't think he can win, I think there was a good chance that he's just like, what am I doing this for anymore? I do think he's sick in the head and he loves football. Like, some of these guys are just obsessed and they can't give it up. And so I think that that's a part of it too. But this team's loaded. The Jets are the New York Jets are the only team, I think, unless I'm missing somebody, that have like 2 guys going in like the first round essentially of drafts on offense. That's insane. The New York Jets have 2 top players in Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall going in the first round of best ball drafts. I think they're the only team that I can think of. So that's insane. And then let's not forget about the incredible defense. Aaron Rodgers probably can come into this team, just be decent Aaron Rodgers, and they should win, 12 to 13 games. And their division probably not.
The AFC East, I think, is going to be tough to win that many games. For Bills, Miami, for the Jets, I think they're all just going to beat up on each other a little bit.
Listen, I know you don't want to hear it, but I do think it's possible that certain teams take a step back. I think the New England's not very good. Miami's shown they can't win big games. I think it's ripe for the Jets to potentially try to win the division. They might beat each other up a little bit, and I agree with you. The AFC's loaded comparatively speaking, but Garrett Wilson has produced, and if he's going to be a target monster with Aaron Rodgers,
right?
Again, same thing. You could get a guy at the end of the first round that's going to produce up there with the Justin Jeffersons, with even potentially Jamar Chase, with even CeeDee Lamb. Like, he can be right up there with him. There's no reason why he can't.
Yep, for sure. And I think that is, that's kind of like one of those things where it's like, yeah, come on, Mitch. Like, yes, he's a good pick. Of course he's a good pick. Same with David's. True. And we're not trying to say that nobody else is a good pick of a top 10, top 15, top 20 here.
Sure.
We just want to point out, listen, when we have the opportunity, we're not skipping over it. We're not worried about exposures, being overexposed, nothing. If this player happens to be available when I am drafting, no matter where I am making that pick. Now, I'm not saying I'm picking Garrett Wilson in the top 5. No. I'm just saying, listen, when you get to that 9th, that 10th spot, I just don't think twice about it. I'm not looking around trying to grab I'm not trying to leapfrog him by, taking Drake London, Marvin Harrison, Nico Collins, Chris Olave, these other guys that are right behind him at the wide receiver position, or, Jahmyr Gibbs at running back, Jonathan Taylor. I'm not picking those players over Garrett Wilson. I'm just not. There's other positions and spots down the draft where, when there's a guy available like Jalen Waddle at 19.7, I'm taking some of the guys behind him. I'm taking Devon Achane. I'm taking Mike Evans. I'm taking some people behind him. Okay. I am not doing that with Garrett Wilson. If he's available for me at 9, the 10, the 11, he is on my roster.
Yeah, man. I don't think, listen, and I know what you said, but like, I think he could be like Amon-Ra, St. Brown, or an AJ Brown this year. I really do. I think he could get into that tier. So I know you mentioned like if they're in the top 5, you're not taking them. I think that's probably wise, just because previous seasons have shown that you shouldn't go too far down in ADP. It ends up being not ideal for your draft just in general. But I do think if you're looking to get a little bit contrarian, even if you're in like the 7th pick of the draft, 8th pick of the draft, where, normally it's like Puka or AJ Brown or something, I don't think there's anything wrong if you want to up your Garrett Wilson exposure to taking him there, because he could finish the season right in that zone and maybe even exceed those players too. So there's nothing wrong with that. And I think you bring up a great point. I mean,
by the way, sorry to interject, but this is interesting. So
what?
You got me thinking. I'm like, okay, well, what's the AFC East win totals? DK Sportsbook. And listen,
telling you, man,
we love NFL futures betting, right? Here's an opportunity here, maybe. So the Jets, and you'll have to line shop this, other books. This is just DK. The Jets, 9.5 wins are juiced to the over at -150. The Bills at 10.5 wins are +130 to the over, juiced to the under at -155. So highest, if we're going by the implied probability, there's a higher potential here for both the Jets and the Bills to finish with 10 wins, right? Then you go look at Miami Dolphins, dude, 9.5 wins. The lean is to the over at -135. So there are 3 teams here in the AFC East that are all potentially sitting around 10 wins. I think it's just going to be hard for these teams in the East to rise above the rest because they're all so good. But I agree with what you said. I think that it's Jets, Bills, either 1A, 1B. Doesn't matter how you toggle them. I can agree with either viewpoint, depending on where you're coming from. And then there's Miami. And looking at that and thinking about it that way, if the Miami Dolphins are going to go 1-3, potentially 0-4 against the Jets and Bills, that 9.5 is going to be hard for them to clear. And the plus odds to the under on the Miami Dolphins under 9.5 wins was +130, which I find to be extremely interesting.
Yeah, they could easily go 9-8. I mean, I wouldn't be that surprised. They're one, and listen, I've talked about this a couple times, and I don't know if I was going to get to this later on, but call it a hunch, and I never want to wish anything on anybody, but a guy like Tyreek Hill, 30 years old, is he going to be 31 this year? He missed a little bit of time last year. I wouldn't be surprised if Tyreek Hill, he runs so freaking fast, his poor hamstrings, if he misses some time this year. And if that happens, or if anything else happens, if Tua, just is Tua essentially, I could easily see them losing a couple of games that they shouldn't lose, and the Jets winning a couple of games that, I mean, the Jets did okay last year without Aaron Rodgers, with no quarterback play. Now throw in Aaron Rodgers with Breece Hall. That's a year healthier now. You've got Garrett Wilson, and then that defense. I would not be surprised to see the Jets win 10 or 11 games this year. So very interesting. I think it's a great take that you had there. I like the pick. I did not think you would go there, actually. So kudos to you, my friend, for going Garrett Wilson. I like it. Yeah. Listen, we got to make sure we talked about chat last week real quick. Before we move on, let's just say good morning and what's up to people. Callie.
Good morning. What's
I agree
up?
On
all right,
Chase.
next pick. Let's go.
Huh?
Nothing. Go for it.
I agree on Chase. Got the 7th pick of the league. I already have the draft day paper saying Chase, no matter what. Listen, I don't disagree. I think Chase is a great pick, especially in the 7th pick of the draft. Good morning, Patrick. First time here, Patrick says, good morning. How you doing? Lions also have ARSB and Gibbs. Yup, graphic. I see you. And Bowers. Look at this. The Bowers love. All right, Dave Kinder, last thing. Sorry, Donuts. I believe the Bills take a step back and finish 3rd in the division. Ooh. Listen, Dave, he might not want to hear it, but it's possible. And it doesn't even mean they're bad. It just means it's possible. I don't know. I don't know what the Bills did on defense. I'm curious to see. It'll be very interesting. Overall, mark our words, though, the AFC is loaded, comparatively speaking. And one more thing about Jamar Chase. Don't forget, people forget, this team was literally in the Super Bowl like 2 years ago. In the Super Bowl. So the sky's the limit. All right. Do you want to go or do you want me to go? Should we go back and forth? Should I go?
Yeah, just keep it. Well, serpentine.
All right.
No, we're not doing serpentine.
No,
just taking jerks.
Serpentine. Listen. All right. So we've been talking about the Dolphins. My number 2, we're going to try to go in order of rounds here. We're not going to go right in order 1, 2, 3, 4, but we're going to go in order of, start to finish. My 2nd or 3rd round pick here is Devin Achane, a literal slate breaking potential running back. I know, I'm not saying anybody's not high on Devin Achane, so I know it's not really going out on a limb here. But
although they're not high enough.
I don't think so, right? Like he could easily finish a top 3 running back this year. Easily. No problem. Like, and if you could take him, running back, what is he going? Maybe running back 5 or 6 or something, maybe 7 behind like Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, going behind all them. Listen, he could easily outscore all of them. No running quarterback, which we like to see, which, you can't say the same for Saquon. You can't say the same for JT. The only thing I think Devin Achane has going against him essentially is Raheem Mostert played great last year, and they want to, split up the touches a little bit. He had a ridiculous 7.8 yards per carry last season. Obviously, I'm not saying he's going to continue that this year. That would be absurd. If he does, congratulations, he's going to win everybody the league whenever, whoever drafts him is going to win. On Underdog, obviously it's half-point PPR. He's going to need touchdowns to really exceed that value, put him up into that top 3 to 5 running back range. So he's going to obviously need to get touchdowns. To that regard, he is beefed up. Everybody's saying he looks bigger this year. He looks better in the offense. He's healthy. He looks strong. Maybe he gets some more of those goal line touches.
You're describing me right now.
I don't expect Raheem Mostert to keep up the 18 touchdowns he scored last year. Raheem Mostert I'm bouncing all of my notes here, but I'm excited about it. Devin Achane only rushed 103 times last year to Raheem Mostert's 181 carries. That's absolutely absurd. I think that after what we saw last year, that has to flip on its head, where a guy like Raheem Mostert gets 103 carries this year and Devin Achane gets around 180. I don't think
bring up his projections.
Sure.
I'm curious. What do we have Achane at for yards?
1345.
Absolutely love it. Oh my God.
We got him at a good spot, and he could easily leapfrog these guys. Mostert got 44 red zone carries in 2023 to Achane's 19. Achane absolutely can flip that on its head. Again, all I'm looking for, I'm not looking for anything crazy, really. I'm not looking for him to even continue his ridiculous 7.8 yards per carry. All I'm asking is for this offense to flip, just like I think Detroit's offense flips a little bit, and Jahmyr Gibbs gets more carries. And if that happens, at a guy being drafted as the running back 7 right now, then I easily think Devin Achane finishes the season as a top 4 running back, exceeding his value by at least 3 to 4 spots. And he could even do better than that because his ceiling is literally whatever you want it to be with how athletic and how fast this guy is and stuff. So that is my pick. That's my next guy, Devin Achane. The floor is
okay, dude. Listen, man, that's an amazing pick. There's nothing wrong with it. Through our conversations and texts and stuff that he's absolutely one of my guys, no doubt about it. But I'm going to tell you right now, this next pick, this is definitely one of my guys. This is definitely one of my guys. Dalton Kincaid, baby.
Dalton Kincaid.
The Buffalo Bills tight end, Dalton Kincaid.
There you go.
Okay, here's the deal. So if Josh Allen runs for 15 rushing touchdowns again, I'm sorry, this pick sucks. It's just going to suck. Dalton Kincaid's going to lose all the red zone opportunities.
Sure.
The Bills do not have a goal line back. They brought in Ray Davis to get in there, try to bully some people around the goal line. Listen, he hasn't shown it. He hasn't proven it yet. Josh Allen's touchdown prop at 9.5 this year. Lean to the over right now. I think he's going to be fantastic as usual. I don't know if the passing is going to be there as much, although Keon Coleman looks like an absolute beast right now, but everybody does during camp battles. Everybody always looks so good in the freaking camps. So it's hard to take anything you see with a grain of salt, but it is fun to watch. Dalton Kincaid quietly chugging along all offseason, put on some beef, try to get faster while doing so, just like every single other player in the preseason workouts. They got bigger, faster, and stronger, right? I truly think that this could have happened with Dalton Kincaid. He's so young, and he's such a beast with the football in his hands. I think that we can see him take the next step forward to be the number 1 tight end this year. I truly think so. In 91 targets only last year, the dude put up 114 fantasy points, and that was only because he only had 2 receiving touchdowns. Now, when you go back and you look, and this is very nerdy, but I'll try to dull this down for the non-analytics people. But essentially, there's usually a touchdown rate that is attached to the amount of receptions that a position has. Dalton Kincaid's was historically low for the tight end position last season. If he even regresses to like an average amount of touchdowns, Dalton Kincaid last season should have had 6 touchdowns, another 24 points, which would have vaulted him up the tight end standings. And that's in his rookie year, my friends. Now you're giving me year 2 for Dalton Kincaid. No Stephon Diggs. I think that there's a chance, and I know everyone's talking about Keon Coleman. Now they like Curtis Samuel. I'm sorry, Curtis Samuel is a gadget guy. He's a wide receiver, a low-end wide receiver 2 at best, likely a volatile wide receiver 3. I think Keon Coleman is going to be very similar. I think he's going to be a splash wide receiver 3 this season. You're going to get some weeks where he goes out there, 6 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown, and you're going to get a heck of a lot of rookie production type games, 3 catches, 54 yards. I think Dalton Kincaid is going to be a target monster. I think he has potential, if the touchdowns regress in the receiving category, to him to have one of those years where you're like, oh my gosh, at ADP of 51.4 and tight end 5, why was he not on 99% of my lineups this season for Underdog Fantasy or in my friends' fantasy football leagues? Because I truly believe that if we can get one of those seasons that we've seen from guys like Travis Kelce in the past, they have 110 catches, 1,300 yards, and 12 touchdowns like he had in 2022 for 261 fantasy points. The sky is the limit for Dalton Kincaid. I think that is within reach this year, and I am drafting him left and right at ADP 51. I've been taking him early, sometimes, pick 43, pick 44, pick 42. I'm reaching for him because I truly believe within the construct of what the Buffalo Bills offense is and what his role will be, that the potential for him to turn in a 100-plus catch season, a 1,000-yard receiving season, and a double-digit touchdown season is within reach.
Okay. Listen, I'm high on Kincaid as well. Just curious to see. So here's the range on Underdog of where he's going. Like you said, 51.4 right now. Are you picking him right here? If you come up and you have a team where you need a tight end, are you picking him above
McBride or Mark Andrews? I haven't touched
You're picking him over Mark Andrews. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, like the guys behind him, I think it's easy to pull the trigger on. Other than
I like him more than Laporta and Kelce. That's the thing. But of course, their ADP is way up there, so it doesn't even matter.
Sure.
Dalton Kincaid at the ADP, I'm taking over virtually everybody in between like 44 to 60. Like he is just that guy for me,
Yeah, I gotcha. I mean, they had a ton of targets vacated this year.
Tons.
I think it's possible we see something interesting, which should help Kincaid, but I actually am a little bit higher on a guy like Curtis Samuel than maybe it sounds like you are. But I think that they end up moving to a little bit more of like a dink and dunk system. I don't think they have that top-down receiver that can take the top off the defense. I don't know if Keon Coleman's that guy or not. So I'm very curious to see if they switch. Last year, I saw a stat that when Joe Brady took over, they only passed maybe 55% of the time in neutral passing situations or something, which was like way down from like the 68 they were before Brady took over. So they leaned actually a little bit more on a guy like James Cook, which, listen, they're going to, especially if we both think that they might be, in games where they're not blowing teams out, they're playing from behind a little bit, they're going to probably have to throw more than they would want. But I'm just very curious to see if we get a dink and dunk offense out of them, which could absolutely help a guy like Kincaid. But I also think it does help Curtis Samuel.
Look what it's done for Travis Kelce,
first year Kincaid can do that.
Hill. Yeah, exactly. We're only talking about needing 30 more targets. Like, are you telling me in year 2, he can't go from 90 to 120 targets? He should.
Yeah,
he absolutely should.
Because they had like 280 targets vacated from Gabe Davis and whatever, and Stephon Diggs leaving. Yeah.
Right. So if he's got a 75% catch rate or so, like a quality tight ends, usually 75, 77%, and then he's getting the yardage, almost around 10-ish yards per catch. You're telling me he gets another 30 targets, he catches 67% of them, all of a sudden he's up to 100 receptions. That's going to be around 1,000 yards. And the only thing that needs to come with those is going to be the touchdowns. And if he has the regression to the mean for what the averages are, he's going to flirt with that. 8 touchdowns, 9, 10 touchdowns. Like, he is within reach. If we are just talking the law of averages for this type of quality type tight end in the position and opportunity that you're getting, 1,000 yards, 100 catches, and 10 touchdowns is within reach. He's my guy.
We haven't projected as the number 1 tight end right now, and call it a bold take, which I think it is. But I think, I think he's the guy. Same thing. Is he going to finish at 1? Hopefully. But if not, does he miss by a lot? Probably not. He's not going to kill you at his ADP by any means. Even if he doesn't, even if he hits 6 to 8.
Jack those fancy points up to like 340.
Listen, I already had to go through last week and tweak some stuff. This one's not bad. We want to leave this one.
Oh, by the way, Marvin Harrison Jr., where is he now? Let me see it.
He's back where he belongs. And he's not that high, but he's back where he belongs.
He's back where he belongs.
Right in this range.
Oh, yeah, he is low. He is low. No, that's good. That's good.
I think he's where he belongs. I would probably put him over Olave, but again, these are joint rankings. These are not my rankings. The other day, I did a video on my YouTube channel of like where I compared like
totally
the industry rankings in mine. No, no, just a couple of little adjustments, little tweaks. Listen,
5 things that Donuts thinks that are incorrect.
5 places where Donuts was wrong, but I'm gonna make it right. I did that privately behind the scenes.
Oh man.
No, we got a good. Our rankings, I really like them. I like them this week better than I did last week. I think they're solid. Neighbors, look at, you can see Neighbors is right up there too. Guys, look at this. Use these tools. As I said, we're constantly tweaking. We're tweaking based off of news. We're tweaking based off of camp, everything. Like they're going to be tweaked and updated daily if needed, definitely weekly for sure. And we've already started doing that. So you guys can see we're not perfect.
Are free. Look at chat. Get spam.
Free.
Get spammed.
Check down champs. Checkdownchamps.com. Checkdownchamps.com. Mike McDaniels, Ripcoil. My boy Ripcoil says Mike McDaniels definitely wants more Achane action. Yeah. Listen, same thing with Gibbs. Him and Gibbs, how could you not? It makes no sense. Although I will say it makes more sense for Montgomery because he's younger and he played well. Mostert's like 30, 31 years old. He doesn't have a ton of mileage on his body, but like it just makes sense for them to roll out Achane more. So
you know what that says about us? Yeah, that's the funniest part. Every once in a while, I catch ourselves talking about like the age of these players. We're like, he's so dusty. Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm like, I just turned 40. You know, I'm like, I still got it. It's like, no, I don't got it. If this 31-year-old wide receiver or this running back don't have it anymore, I don't have it at 40. Either.
Yeah. Well, that much is for sure that we know. Yeah, we don't have it. Okay, the next guy I'm going with. Now we're jumping back into the draft a little bit. You know what? I got to go ahead and make sure we pull this up here, but I am sliding back into the draft a little bit. A guy that's going to be right in this sweet spot here. There he is. James Conner is my next guy, is my next pick. Love it. I love it. Now, let me tell you why I love it. Right now, even just looking at this list, I can see why I love it. Look at this list around him. Unless you need Kyler Murray, who I really like, DeAndre Hopkins, injured. Pass right now. Aaron Jones, pass. Ramondre Stevenson, pass. Najee Harris with Jalen Warren behind him, pass. Jordan Addison, worst quarterback play this year, pass again. Jordan Addison had like 10 touchdowns last year when the same data point you were just referring to said that he should have had like 6 or 7.
Yep.
That's going to regress probably. I love Jordan Addison. He's great talent. Pass though. Jameis Williams, boomer bust, still pass. All these guys around him. I'm snagging James Conner here for sure. Age 29 season, probably the last season that I'm going to put James Conner up on this list though, because 30-year-old running backs, not great. But he doesn't have as many miles on his body as some 29-year-olds. He's been in and out and stuff with other sort of medical and health issues over the years and stuff too. I think he overcame cancer and stuff. Great story, great guy. James Conner started with the Pittsburgh Steelers, had arguably his best statistical season last year. Last season with the Cardinals, arguably his best statistical season. They had no passing threat. He gets that back. Better weapons all around this team to stretch the field for him. Touchdowns. Let me talk about touchdowns. James Conner is a touchdown guy. In a league like Underdog Fantasy, half-point PPR, you need touchdowns everywhere. Touchdowns are king. This is where a guy like James Conner is a guy that you want on your team as opposed to, like, not saying to take him over Alvin Kamara, but as opposed to a Alvin Kamara guy who just gets there because he gets 11 targets a game or 13 catches a game or something. James Conner is going to give you the touchdown work. There's nobody behind him right now that's going to threaten his touches, especially not for touchdowns. Kyler coming off of an injury, less likely to run more than likely, especially around the goal line. He doesn't need to take any low shots to his legs. He had 15 touchdowns, James Conner did in 2021. So he's obviously shown that, let's say that's his ceiling even. 15 touchdowns at this ADP pick right here, 82. Give me that all day. And in 2023, he had 32 red zone carries, 85% of his team's carries in the red zone. What does that tell me? If this team is better this year, which I think they're going to be because Kyler's back and healthy, you've got Marvin Harrison Jr. moving the ball down the field. So if this team is better and they get more red zone opportunities and that 85% just continues up and he just gets more carries and he still gets 85% of his red zone carries, which I think he's going to, because as I said, they brought nobody else in. He's a smash at this spot. I love all the data points I found this week. The more I read them, the more I love them. James Conner is my guy there.
Your guy.
At that
like
spot,
it.
absolutely. I mean,
I
look
like
at the guys around him.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I when you first said, I was like, that's terrible, David. You're just the dumbest. You're just dumb.
Nope.
But then you read off the guys ahead of him.
I'm
And
actually
you're right, dude.
genius.
You're right. That is a great freaking pick because I want nothing to do with like everybody above him all the way to Christian Watson at 68. Like I don't want Deontay, Lad McConkey, Brian Thomas, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Keon Coleman.
Nope.
DeAndre Hopkins, Jordan Addison, Jameson Williams, Curtis Samuel, Cortland Sutton, Joshua Palmer, Rashid. No, I mean, just the list goes on until you get to the guy. There's just all sorts of guys in that area that I just don't want anything to do with. And then there's James Conner, who we've seen have it. The offense should improve with a threat on the outside, going down the field, probably everywhere. This guy's nasty. And then Kyler Murray returning. So if that offense is moving up and down the field and James Conner is still going to be that workhorse, especially in the red zone, I love the pick. In fact, I am a little jealous right now.
Listen, we got a good comment. Graphic 13 talks about he loves Ferguson, and I don't disagree with you there, Graphic. What I will say, though, is I've been a guy this year that's really trying to either do one of two things, and maybe this will be a downfall of mine and an error that I look back next year and be like, okay, I got to adjust my process. But in this range, I have usually already grabbed my tight end. I really want to, in drafts this year, try to grab one of those top 6 or 7 tight ends. It ends in that Kittle and Kyle Pitts range. And then after that, so I'm either grabbing the Dalton Kincaid, the Florida. I'm trying to grab one of those guys. Ferguson's in that kind of like dead zone for me. That's the only reason. I agree with you on Ferguson, though, on an individual level. We've talked about it before. Dallas doesn't have a lot of guys. They have a lot of targets to go around and not a lot of guys to give the targets to. So Ferguson's good in that range, but I usually already have my tight end by there. And if I already have one of those top tight ends, I'm sure as heck not grabbing Ferguson there. But if you feel like you missed out for whatever reason, the draft didn't go your way or didn't go as you had planned, and you missed out on one of those top tight ends, Ferguson's a great guy to take in there. And maybe those lineups don't end up with James Conner, but I'm either going all in at the top and trying to get a top tier tight end, one of the top 6 or 7 guys on the board, or I'm waiting till the end and I'm stacking 3 tight ends and hoping that one of those guys each week just hits for me. So you bring up a great point, Ferguson, Graphic. I think Ferguson is the guy in that range that you could take. But I usually personally just already have my tight ends position locked down by then. But
let's talk about this. So you mentioned the tight end for Dallas, and this leads into my next pick. So I think this is perfect. Dak Prescott. He's my 3rd league winning pick. Now, we talked about this last week ad nauseum. Listen, just looking at, and anybody who watches me here on YouTube or on Twitter, they know everything's betting for me, right? So I'm looking at his player props. I'm seeing the 2nd most passing yard prop. I'm seeing the 2nd highest touchdown prop. Dak Prescott at pick 95 does not make sense to me. Does not make sense to me when we have Burrow, Murray, Stroud, Richardson, Lamar, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen. There are 8 quarterbacks ahead of him. Now, I'm not saying that these guys don't have a shot of outscoring him. Of course they do. Anybody does in fantasy football. But Dak all the way down there at pick 95 makes no sense. It makes no sense to me. And what I love the most, and you brought this up last week, and I think it was a very good point, and I actually agree with you after I thought about the only reason why I think Dak Prescott is that low is because in Underdog Fantasy, people like to try to stack with their alpha, whomever the number 1 target is. And it's hard to get CD because you essentially need a top 3 pick to get CD Lamb. So I actually like him because I can't get CD. And here's why. If CD explodes, goes nuclear, I don't think I need to, of course, an ideal situation, I get CD in the beginning, I get Dak later. I don't think you need him for Dak to provide you that value. If CD goes nuclear this year, has a number 1 player type performance, ends up being the highest scoring positional player, Dak Prescott likely had a great year. And you know what? You can stack the Dallas offense around Dak at pick 95 so easily. It's my favorite thing to do right now. You can grab the guy that you guys were just talking about, that Graphics brought up and you mentioned, whom I also think is kind of like the last quote unquote safe, maybe the good feeling tight end, and Jake Ferguson. You can get him at the end of the 7th round. Literally, pick 84. That is 7.12 or the 8.01. Okay. So the end of the 7 or the turn of the 8th round. Then you can get Dak Prescott with your 9th. And then you can get Brandon Cooks with your 10th. You can spend 3 straight picks pretty safely. And it happens frequently where people just aren't drafting Brandon Cooks. They're not really taking Dak Prescott because look at the people around them. There's fine options. It's not like they feel like they're missing out because Jordan Love's right behind Dak Prescott. By the way, Jordan Love, 3rd highest passing touchdown prop this season. And the dude threw 32 touchdowns last year in his first full year as a starter, just got a $220 million extension, highest paid quarterback in NFL history. Insane. So when you've got guys like that right behind Dak, people are like, I didn't get CeeDee Lamb, and there's still Jordan Love behind me. And then also, by the way, Jordan Love, very close to being this pick for me right here for the same reasons. He's got 4 freaking wide receivers that you can draft, and you can draft them pretty easily. You can get 2 of them fairly easily. It's hard. You might miss out on Christian Watson. You might miss out on Dobson or Reed. Like you might miss, Dobbs. Thank you. You might miss out on one of these guys, but you're going to be able to get 2 of the other ones. You can just do it. It's not too hard. So I think that's why Dak continues to slide. I think when we did our first show, he's like ADP 93, like he's going down. I freaking love Dak Prescott. I love taking Ferguson, Dak, and Cooks in picks 8, 9, and 10. It works out very easily. He's my guy, baby.
I'm just curious, if you have T. Higgins or Jamar Chase on your team and you get to this spot, are you taking Burrow for the stack, or are you so in love with Dak that you'd consider trying to go Dak more often and then building your stack around and just having Jamar Chase as an ancillary piece?
Yeah, that's the way, because I think now I'm getting exposure to potentially the top wide receiver. Exactly. And I've got, the alpha in one of the best offenses in the NFL, but then I'm also able to stack up this one team that hopefully goes nuclear in week 16, week 17 of, the playoffs for Underdog Fantasy. Well, I also have Jamar hopefully going nuclear as well on his own right.
Man, I'm very curious to see what ends up. I think it all is relative depending on how the season ends up, right? Like, I mean, so is everything, but I'm very curious because I definitely am a stacker. And I think for the most part, the data definitely speaks to stacking. However, what you're describing is still stacking. It's just in a different way. I mean, you're just stacking a different piece or something. Whereas like me, myself, if I had Chase, I'm going to try to grab Burrow here and pass on Dak. But that's an interesting thought, is that maybe you just build the stack the next time in the next rounds. Like you said, you grab Dak and you grab Ferguson if you don't already have a guy, or you grab Dak and then you grab, you grab Cook, or you grab Tolbert, right? Oh yeah. Look at it. Graphics talking about Tolbert. I think he's a fine option. Here's the deal.
Some deep targets on him.
Yeah, you could definitely want to stack your quarterbacks. That's my opinion, and I think that's been backed up by data enough to say that that's a good idea. That's how you win. If you're trying to win these tournaments, you have to have stacks. But you don't have to have the stacks of your first round players every time. So
agreed.
If you grab Dak, let's say you grab Dak, somebody grabs Ferguson, you grab Cooks, and then you want another late round piece, absolutely grab Tolbert at ADP. Don't force him in there. But if you're looking at ADP and you're going to draft and it's Tolbert and a couple other guys that are unstacked, unrelated or anything like that, absolutely grab Tolbert. Absolutely. Just don't go out of your way to grab him way above ADP. So yeah.
I wouldn't even touch a guy like Tolbert unless I had him on a team with Dak,
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's like such a low probability that he pops up, but if he happens to, then Dak's going to get the boost as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. No, I'm only talking on Dak teams. Only Dak
honestly,
teams.
We're about to enter the league, the true league winning picks.
Probably, yeah.
These are the ones where it's like, listen, man, everybody from like 120 to 220 is just an absolute dart throw, regardless of what people say, other than our 2 picks each year, which are locks.
Of course. All right, of locks, let me go down.
Locks.
Let me see. I can't even find my guy right now. All right, so I'm just going to pivot to him. Here, do you have Underdog up?
You want me to do my 4th? Well, you find yours?
No, I have him ready. I just don't have him on Underdog. Did you share your screen? Can I throw it to you on Underdog for a minute and you can try to find this guy while I read off his data?
Let me share my screen real quick.
Yeah. No problem. This is how deep we're starting to go now. There we go. Okay. There you go. All right.
My players.
Please stay. Keep watching the video. I'll put them back up.
I warned you. I said, are you ready for it? All right. My 4th guy is a rookie. And let me also just say, this is where it gets a little ugly, guys. We're picking guys that aren't going to make you feel good,
Not
but
gonna
it
feel
should.
good.
Tyrone Tracy Jr. And Mitch says, huh? Who's that guy? Right? Do you know who he is?
Search.
Tyrone Tracy Jr.
Oh my goodness, a 197.
Out of Purdue. Oh, I might have gone opposite order then. I didn't realize he was that low. Okay, well, anyways, it's close.
Doesn't matter.
Tyrone Tracy Jr. out of Purdue earned a 9.78 RAS score. That's relative athletic score. Basically, it means that the guy's an athletic freak. Finished 4th in the country in yards. These are all college data because the guy hasn't played a snap. This is how deep we're starting to go. He finished 4th in the country in yards after contact per run. Had a 23.1% explosive run rate, highest in the country. And I don't have a lot of data because the guy hasn't played an NFL snap yet, and he is on a team. While I don't think they're going to be great, I am probably a little higher on the Giants than other people just in general, because I think Malik Neighbors and hopefully Daniel Jones can get him the ball and they come back and they're a decent team. I'm just hoping they're decent and they can be ahead in a couple of games, or let's just say keep it close so that they can still run the ball. Devin Singletary has never rushed for 1,000 yards in a season. His highest scoring season was in 2021 with 7 touchdowns. He's not that guy. They gave Singletary $9.5 million in guarantees. So I'm not saying he's just going to sit the bench, because that's a substantial or decently substantial contract for a running back. I also think that was partially just like, hey, we just lost a generational phenomenal talent. We just have to bring in somebody that people know who he is. So they bring in Singletary, give him $9.5 million. But then they draft Tyrone Tracy. And I think Tyrone Tracy is just a better player overall. And on your team that you're talking about has a guy like Devin Singletary, who's never really commanded the spot. I think he has a chance to take over the number 1 running back spot by, week 8. Maybe you're at least to a 50-50, maybe 60-40 split in his favor. And if he's truly that much better, by maybe week 6 or 8, you just see him take over the spot and take over the running back job. And then Devin Singletary just comes in and spells him and stuff. So that is a guy that I've been grabbing a lot in this ADP of 197, when we're literally talking no man's land. It's basically one of your last picks in the draft. And I find myself drafting a lot of late round running backs because, didn't even mention, but if the fact is Devin Singletary even gets injured, again, we're not hoping for injuries, but if that happens, Tyrone Tracy Jr. is the only guy in this backfield that can do anything, I think. And he just gets all the touches, and hopefully the Giants can keep games close. So yes, that's what I was wondering if you could pull up, because we're talking about way at the bottom here. I mean, we're way
down. Man. Got you.
Thank you. Yes. So in this range, I think that where is he? Oh, there he is. Okay.
197.
Oh, wait.
ADP RB 61.
Okay. All right. Okay. So in that range, though, is he? I don't see him on your screen there. 197. Okay. I see him. So I pulled it up. Hold on. Yeah. That's what I wanted to see. Yes. Thank you. So looking at the guys around him, Braylon Allen is another fine option in there. Rojo looked great the other night, but I think Rojo's really going to be in a 3 running back committee with DeAndre Swift there. And I don't see anybody really pulling ahead with the job. And if anybody, it's going to be Swift, who they gave a lot of money to. So then you're looking at guys like Will Shipley, who would need Saquon to get injured to do anything. Otherwise, he's not even going to touch the ball. Dameon Pierce, pretty much same thing. Showed us he's not very good last year even. Braylon Allen is a guy that could be good, but he is entirely reliant on Breece Hall to get injured. So you've got these guys that the only way they're even going to see the field is if their alpha running back gets hurt. And if they don't, they're not even going to touch the ball, basically. And then talk about Tyrone Tracy Jr. in the same range, who is not behind an alpha running back. I think he's going to get a lot of carries and opportunities right up front. And also, I think he's just better than the guy in front of him. That is why I love Tyrone Tracy in this spot. Like I said, I find myself drafting late round running backs a lot because I've loaded up on wide receivers in the beginning and the middle rounds. And if I'm not grabbing a late round tight end because I'm going with a 2 or a 2 quarterback or tight end build, then I'm grabbing running backs with my last couple of picks. So
I smell what you're cooking.
That is my spiel. You don't have to add anything to it if you've never heard of the guy before. I don't even know who this guy is.
I do like it. I'm just so down on the Giants offense. That's all.
Yeah, I know you are. And that's why we had Neighbors so low last week.
I was going to say, that's also why it's baked into the ADP. Like, he's 187 because it's the Giants, But hey, listen, people provide value every single year on garbage teams. And at 197, you're literally risking nothing. Like most of the final 3 picks you make are probably going to provide you nothing but what if. It's the what if scenario, and the upside of what could happen if it comes to fruition. So I smell what you're cooking, and I can put it down too. I like Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah.
Hey, I was going to talk about J.K. Dobbins, but I talked about him ad nauseum last week. I even had him preloaded on my list here to talk about him today. Let's not do it again. If you watched last week's video, you know I'm in love with him. My other guy here, and I'm going to pivot quickly here. Okay. Rico Dowdle. Listen, the only guy ahead of him right now is Zeke.
Yeah.
Zeke looking a little winded yesterday in training camp.
I saw that. That was embarrassing. Is that real? Did he
I don't know,
man. In the testicles or something? Like, come
Not
on.
a good
that
look.
Can't be real, man. He was like, he
Very
ran like 7 yards.
And listen, I don't know what's up. I don't know. Maybe he got a little cup check there, but things aren't looking good. And listen, Zeke's a plotter at this point in his career. I think there's a chance Zeke is literally going to be like red zone guy. I honestly, I think he could be like red zone guy, and I don't know, maybe some pass pro guy because he's a good pass protector, and they'll keep Dak upright. But I truly think that Rico Dowdle is the most talented out of this garbage backfield. Garbage is probably a terrible term to use, out of this potentially low upside backfield, but that's also being baked into the ADP. I think at the opportunity cost of a 137 RB43 for a guy that you can get in round 14, I think you have upside for him to end up being like what? A low end RB2. Maybe you get lucky and you get some high end RB2 weeks, scores a couple touchdowns. But I like Rico Dowdle simply because of the offense that he's in the division that he's in. Giants and Washington are not teams that are like, oh, they're going to lock you down defensively. The Eagles last year, shootout after shootout. So I think you've got some chances here where Dowdle has an opportunity at 136.5 ADP and RB43 to leapfrog what Zeke will even produce in his 13th year as a pro, whatever it is. It feels like he's like in his 20th year. I think that Rico Dowdle provides tremendous upside. I was not entirely ready to talk about him. My guy was going to be, I'm going to add him to the list here. My guy was about to be J.K. Dobbins again. But listen, I pivoted hard, and I gave you another type of Dallas pick here because, listen, they're just too low. All these Dallas players are too low for me.
Listen, I'm glad. I mean, it's fine not to pivot. You were fine. J.K. Dobbins it's going to be interesting what happens there. I have a slightly different take on that offense, but I honestly think that there's nobody that has a strong take on what's going to happen. And that's why it's been such a unique scenario. Nobody knows what's going to happen with the Chargers offense and specifically the running game. And now you've got some uncertainty with Herbert and stuff. So totally fine to pivot there. I know you love J.K. Dobbins, and Rico Dowdle is a great pick. If I had done my list later in this week after some new things I read, Rico Dowdle might have been on my list as well, because I'm seeing some great things out of camp. One of the beat writers for the Cowboys said it's day one in pads, but Rico Dowdle is the best running back here, and there's not a lot to argue about it. They talk about that Royce Freeman, I think, and somebody mentioned it in the chat.
Royce Freeman put up his best year last year, like efficiency wise, with the Rams, right?
Yes, the Rams? But I don't know.
That 2 years ago,
last year. Royce Freeman was with Chicago at one point, right?
Oh gosh, I thought he played for the Rams last year.
He might have, but I know I'm pretty sure he was with Chicago at one point. But yeah, so I mean, I think again, we're talking about this late ADP pick. Was he with the Rams last year?
Yeah, essentially his most efficient year since his third year with the Broncos.
Has he ever? Oh, Royce Freeman was with the Broncos, not the Bears. Got it. Okay. Yeah, I don't think there's anything. Listen, I think this is another opportunity to have an open backfield. If Rico Dowdle continues this Cowboys beat reporters news and continues to be the best running back, he absolutely can fight for time and fight for carries and stuff. And again, we're talking about at ADP, nothing wrong with that. And the nice thing about it, the one thing I do like about that is he's in a great offense, in an offense that hopefully will have the lead sometimes, whereas Tyrone Tracy Jr. might not have the lead very often, as many people in the chat started to talk about, but we'll see. I'm very curious to see what ends up happening there with the Giants, the Cowboys, and this entire NFC division. All right. My last pick is, I mean, I have an honorable mention at the end too, but my last pick is a little bit out of ADP order, I believe, but it's a guy that I've been trying to get in as many stacks as I can. And it's a quarterback. Is this our first quarterback? No, you had Dak, but this is a late round quarterback now.
Geno
Smith. Geno Smith. Listen, this is such a sharp play. Geno Smith gets a new offensive coordinator in Ryan Grubb, who was the offensive coordinator for the NCAA championship winning Washington Huskies. He led them to the championship last year. Seahawks were the slowest offense in the NFL in 2023, literally dead last in pace of play and offensive snaps per game. All the college sharps who are far smarter than me and follows college a lot closer say that Geno aligns perfectly with a Ryan Grubb offense. Lots of bunches and stack formations. The Ryan Grubb specializes in getting his guys separated in man coverage. You've got two dogs in Smith-Njigba and DK Metcalf. DK is a guy I love this year. DK is a guy I'm way higher on, I think, than the field and the public are. In 2022, Mitch, where do you think Geno ended up in fantasy? What quarterback position was he? You would be where everybody else would probably have answered to. He was quarterback 5. Geno has 2022.
Oh, I thought it was
not last year, but the year before. No,
I don't know if I would have got that right either way.
Last year, I don't think anybody would have thought he was quarterback 5. You're talking about with names like Burrow, Mahomes, Geno Smith, right? We mentioned him in the same category. He threw 30 touchdown passes, so he obviously can do it again in a better offense, in a faster offense again, with the same or better weapons now because they have JSN that they didn't have before. They still have Tyler Lockett, who's a little bit older, but he could slide perfectly into that number 3 spot, whereas last year he was the number 2 receiver. And I started the year picking Geno at pick 175, and now he is up to pick 165, quarterback 22 off the board, late in the 14th round, right where I look to stack my quarterbacks. And you're telling me you can get a guy with top 5 potential who's shown that he has top 5 potential, not just hypothetical top 5 potential, shown top 5 potential. That is why Geno Smith is my guy.
That's a great freaking pick.
Smith.
Steeped in logic, massive upside. And listen, if people are drafting all 3 of his wide receivers in the first 110 picks or so, why is he going so low? That's a really interesting point. And I listen, I back it. I don't even have to think twice. I'm just trying to find Geno Smith passing props on DK Sportsbook real quick. But
he's going around guys like, which I like Baker Mayfield too. I like him for his stacking ability. I like Baker. I think you could see Baker take a step back this year because he lost his offensive coordinator that made him so good last year potentially. But I think it was Dave Canales who went to the Carolina Panthers now as their head coach. But I do like Baker as well. But he's going with Will Levis, Daniel Jones, Bryce Young, Drake May, Derek Carr. He's right around Aaron Rodgers, who couldn't even make it through 3 plays last year. Deshaun Watson. And then I like Stafford. Kirk Cousins coming off an ACL injury. I will take Geno in this range. There's basically 2 guys in that range that could lead or could be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL this year. Herbert's done it before. I don't see him being one of those guys this year. Matt Stafford potentially, and maybe just him. Actually, I'd say maybe just him. I don't see Aaron Rodgers being a top 5 fantasy quarterback at this stage anymore. So, especially not when you have a very capable Breece Hall and stuff. Literally, he's in that range to me is like the only guy that could finish as a top 5 quarterback, along with Herbert, essentially, maybe, or who the other guy I mentioned. But yeah, that's it. That's all I got for him.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm going to fire off 2 guys here. Very short analysis, just talk about upside. This is kind of just in the same area. I would have said before yesterday with the airlifting thing, or 2 days ago, where Foreman got airlifted out of practice. Foreman was going to be my guy. He was going to be my guy, but I don't know. I just want to see how that shakes out. Says he's back at practice, right? He's already back at practice, or he's ready to go. But
listen, neck injury.
Yeah, just a neck injury, he says.
Well, for NFL, they bounce back quick because not his legs or anything like that.
Okay. So
you guys are freaks, man.
I think he's going to provide a ton of value early in the season. I truly do. Touchdowns, at the very least, should be there for Donta Foreman. As he is going to be splitting time while Nick Chubb starts the season, I believe, on the PUP list. But let's do a quick pivot here. Keaton Mitchell, I think, is going to be a fine option for the other side of things. So Donta Foreman, I think, provides value in the beginning of the season, and potentially that's the only time he provides value. On the flip side, I think Keaton Mitchell could be the guy that really starts to provide value when it comes to the final 6 to 7 weeks of the NFL season and the playoffs for Underdog Fantasy, where maybe they're starting to spell Derrick Henry a little more. Maybe Henry, with all his miles, starts to really grind to a halt, which he did in the second half of last season. If you watched They really started to work him out of the rotation a little bit, and he'd have fewer touches some games. And if they were down at all, he just wasn't on the field. And then a guy like Keaton Mitchell, who we watched last season, absolutely erupt. I mean, he was running the football like crazy, over 9 yards to carry, just so silly, video game-esque. He has the opportunity to, the Devon Achane light type performance when he returns from being healthy. But again, he is similar to Chubb, exact opposite. Foreman's going to give you opportunity at ADP of 214, with Chubb being on the PUP list. Keaton Mitchell provides you no opportunity for points until the second half of the season because he's starting on the PUP list.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see. Yes, you're not wrong. I have some concerns about Henry as well, but I just think that, I don't know, man. I just think that Henry in this offense, he was a guy I was thinking about talking about on this list, really, because they've got Justice Hill there. So is Michael Keaton so good that he can afford to sit out the first 6, to 8 weeks and not be involved in stuff, and then come back in and try to flirt with that number 2 spot and be the guy there? I hope so, because I like explosive players like that. That's a reason I like a guy like Chase Brown, who has actually supposedly been a beast in camp and like playing incredible. Kind of like the Devin Singletary situation, where like Zach Moss just for me isn't that guy that's going to steal and have a stranglehold on the number 1 spot. But Derrick Henry, one thing I'll say is it was interesting because the Ravens, you want to talk about season long odds. Their win prop is 10.5, juice to the over. So the Ravens should win at least 11 games, according to Vegas. I project them probably to win 12 games. And he's had 10 plus touchdowns every single season since 2017. So the only reason that I'm kind of interested in, or one of the only reasons I guess I'm really interested in Henry, is because if he gets his normal, he had, even last year though, when they gave him the ball less, he had 250 carries, 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns. If his ADP has started to climb up a little bit, which I don't like him as much in the beginning of the year, which is, sometimes it helps to draft running backs, or it helps to do your drafts earlier in the year. He was going as pick 32. Now he's all the way up to 29. So it's only a couple of spots, but it does matter. Lamar Jackson slimmed down. I don't think Lamar is going to get a lot of the goal line work. He's in the best team and the best offense he's ever been in. So now, even if he's not what he once was, he's down in the red zone more. He gets more red zone opportunities than maybe he's ever had. So maybe he's not going to break those long runs and stuff like that too, but he's still humongous. So, you give him the carry inside the 10-yard line, he could still bowl somebody over to get a touchdown there. I just think we could see like 15 touchdowns out of Henry. In which case, if we get 15 touchdowns and you get 1,000 yards out of him, which he's basically fallen into 1,000 yards every single season, I think he pays off his ADP and could potentially exceed it, just because he's going to be in such a better offense. But very hypothetical. Henry's obviously got a lot of miles on his old body too.
Sure.
So it's a potential that he just falls apart too. So
I love your projections you have for Keaton Mitchell, by the way. 130 attempts, 583 rushing yards. I think that's pretty fantastic. And listen, I will take that from a guy I'm essentially taking in the last pick of my draft. Like literally round 18, the draft is ended. My last pick is Keaton Mitchell. I love the upside.
Well, and you've got a lot of upside if Henry does get hurt. And I know, again, we're going to always say, like, and I don't want to say it every time, but like, we obviously don't hope for injuries. However, they do happen sometimes. Little plug there. They do happen occasionally. Sometimes. And, if anybody's going to get injured, it would be a 30 to 31-year-old running back with a ton of miles on his body and who's been, injured off and on the last couple of seasons. So if somebody's going to get hurt, it would be somebody like Henry. And if that's the case, then if Keaton Mitchell's only competing with Justice Hill for touches, that's a different story. So I think that's a fine pick. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a good pick at his ADP, and maybe even a great pick at his ADP. So
good stuff, baby. Well, those are our top 5-ish league winning picks. I think we gave you a couple extra nuggets there. Hopefully this is a good
over deliver.
Yeah, well, always, man. What is that? Under promise? What is that? Under promise,
over deliver.
Yeah. So hopefully today was a very valuable show for y'all, and be on the lookout for. You got to be following Hulk's channel if you're looking for more best ball content. You gotta follow this guy. He's posting best ball videos and streams. I don't have that ability to do so, but my guy over there does, and he had a nice longer video the other day full of info and analysis. So make sure you guys give his channel a search. And then of course, you're also going to have betting videos coming soon on his channel.
Oh, yeah.
And if you are on mine, well, then you already know where to find me. Do us a massive favor for you, Dip. Hit the like button here on YouTube for us. If you're on Twitter or something, just retweet it for us. That would be phenomenal.
We didn't do it once today. We did not say that once the entire
Said it in the beginning.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I remembered.
Good. All right,
I
good.
remembered. Big
We'll
W.
get better. We're getting back into the swing of things here. We'll remember. We'll get better. We've got videos. Yeah, listen, if you're not following either one of our channels, if you're watching on one, go over to the other and hit the subscribe button. Subscriptions are free. They do not limit you. You are not tied to anything. Just throw them our way. We'd appreciate it. That's what keeps us supported, makes us feel good when we leave. We go back and we say, well, how many people watch? How many subscribers do we get? And I am closing in on 1,000, and 1,000's a big milestone for YouTube. So if you guys could do me a favor and hit the subscribe button to help me get to 1,000, I would greatly appreciate it. Mitch, do you have anything else you can plug? I mean, you're welcome to. The floor is yours. You're welcome to do it. I know this is NFL.
Go, baby.
Okay.
Check down champs.com, my friends.
And
totally free.
Totally free. Listen, totally free. I'm going to throw up a little outro that I have that's just not specific to us, but it's beautiful. And you guys have a great week. We'll see you next week. Check out Mitch's shows every morning, 9 a.m., Monday through Friday, 8 a.m.